Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, October 2nd. Everyone's all excited. What will happen? Probably nothing. Just historically speaking, it doesn't mean nothing will happen, but I mean, they're called signs. Signs usually appear before something happens, not when they happen. At least that's how I've generally come to recognize a lot of these signs and symbols that we see all the time that just keep showing up. Can't really deny that they're showing up, but especially with the very particular way things are happening in the outer world story right now. But what I want to talk about today, first of all, let me just say the energy feels a lot cleaner today. There was some kind of shift, and I mentioned recently how the outer world, like weather and things like that, oftentimes seems to reflect the energy. And the last, I don't know, five or more days, it's been like this really dark, dreary, gray, overcast crap outside. And there's been this kind of oppressive uh, feeling, like a muddying of the energetic water. I notice it when I try to do videos. I don't feel like I'm as clear as I usually am, at least in the last week or so. I would say starting. Well, it hasn't been that long. It began Friday. So what is today? Wednesday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, so it's getting close to a week, about 5 days or so. But today, it's a lot cleaner. It's nice out, the sun's out, and it just feels different. Um, but I wanted to talk about today is why I repeat stuff so much. Because there's lots of channels out there, and there's always something new. Like, oh, just talk about a different subject every day. But we're trying to do something very specific here. And it really comes down to repetition, especially on the key points. And what we repeat might change as we see the outside world story change, because the time frame and stuff like that. So you go back a year or so, I might have been spending a lot more time trying to teach people how to connect with the light, how to connect with Sophia, Christ, Lumen, build that relationship and stuff like that. Whereas now, getting toward the end of whatever, like, that's not the primary focus, because it's just like getting yourself freaking clear, getting yourself ready, the key stuff. But what I'm going up against here is the world. And the world is, the biggest veil that's been pulled over your eyes, and it's been teaching you things by repetition your entire life. So if you just say something once and you've got an opposing point that's been told to you 10 billion times, that opposing point's probably going to win out. So we repeat because I know from my own path, from my own journey, that I had to see things multiple times before they actually clicked. So we got to keep doing it. We got to keep doing it. Don't get, we will stop now and then and look at what's going on in the outside world. But again, we cannot allow that to distract us from what we're actually trying to do, because this stuff isn't real. You have to treat this place that you're in, this life that you're in, this experience that you're in, as if you're in the best metaphor I can come up with is it's like being in a dream that you can't wake up from. And you have to work to become lucid. And as you become more lucid, you can then start to undo a lot of the stuff that's been done, and that frees things up further and further and further. The more you free yourself, the less you suffer. The less you suffer, the less connected you are to the dream world, the more you start to connect to the light, which is where you're actually from, where your consciousness actually comes from. Your consciousness is currently projected into this place, into this seeing through the filter of the body. It's like imagine pushing your face up against, a piece of plastic or something like that. That's looking at the world, but everything is behind you. You're like watching a movie, like you go to see, I don't know, Deadpool and Wolverine on opening night, and all you can do is get those horrible front row seats where you break your neck trying to see it. That's what looking at the world is like. And it's so big and it's overwhelming, but that's that's not the real thing. You have to break yourself of that. It takes time, it takes work. When it comes to back when we had more time, people would find their path, end up on the hero's journey, and it has a very specific sequence. And the benefit to the hero's journey is once you're on it, you're on it. You have to evolve because you end up in all sorts of horrible crap. It forces you to evolve. Now, what's happening now is everyone that has not done that is going to be forced to evolve by the world. Yeah, you don't want that. I mean, there's no honestly telling when we're actually going to get out of here. It's kind of fuzzy. It's fuzzy. But there are signs. There's a lot of signs, and a lot of them come from her. I trust her. I don't trust the world. But outside of this place, time's a little bit different. Soon, what soon means to her might mean something completely different to us. But either which way, it's definitely happening. We're definitely seeing it. So what can we do to get better in alignment with the light? Because the end, if there's no other reason to do it, then you could say that doing it and stops your suffering. That right there is enough. That right there is enough. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about this. If you want to know more, don't go away. So because we get new people in here all the time and they just don't know the backstory. And I know my channel's a lot to go through and it's not particularly set up in such a way that it's easy to know what I'm talking about at any given day. It's just the way she set me up to do it. Talk about the thing of the day for the most part. But one of the best proofs for Sophia Lumen is not my beliefs, but my experience. And it's through that a lot of these things are discovered, not learned from books. So, it all starts back, spiritual awakening 2011. Then it got a little bit stranger in 2012. But for the most part, I was still leading my old life, my old family, my other channel, which I just do part-time. But I was, I had everything going for me. Combined income, family income, it was probably about, I don't know, we probably brought in about 175,000 a year, a nice house, everything. And then one day I did the prayer, which I've talked about several times on this channel. Like, this is how you do it. You pray to the highest point of consciousness without naming it, because that can only be the highest form of God. But because we can't name things based on what we learn in the world, because we don't know if that's right. But if you pray to the highest point of consciousness and say, I want to know, I want to understand, I want truth, I don't want to live in deception and all this stuff, and I'll do whatever it takes. That's the thing that triggers it usually. And I did that, but I didn't really think about what that might possibly bring. And within a couple months, it was triggered and I lost everything. This this is in the books. This is what happens. It has to strip you have to strip down your old self, your old ego, and it can be a long, arduous process if you have no idea what's going on, which is how it was with me. I didn't have any mentors or anybody that had been through it to like guide me and tell me what was happening. I had to figure it out for myself. So that's what I was saying about earlier is if you're on the hero's journey, it forces you to evolve because you're put into situations where it's just constant struggle and you want to improve your situation and there's always things getting in the way. And the only way to do it is that you got to figure it out yourself. You got to try stuff. And that's what I did. And it was most of what I know about talking about the past is my understanding that I have now. I didn't have that understanding then, but I was being guided. I was being guided to do certain things, and certain experiences were coming up. And it was a process of just like breaking down all the things in the world that were affecting me and coming after me. But the reason that they were there was because I'd learned about them. I'd made them real through my own mind. Like people don't think deep enough about how this place works. And over time we pared that down. So biggest evidence is like you take somebody that had it good and strip everything away from them and isolate them. No more friends, no more family, no more easy support, from sponsors and stuff like that. And you got to struggle every minute of every day, not only just to live, but for your own mental stability and sanity and emotional health. Like you are torn up. Most people don't get out of stuff like this. But if you're being guided, you're being guided. So how many people suffer like extreme emotional traumas and completely heal themselves without any outside help? No therapists, no drugs, no nothing. But they go through a process in which they're guided by something which ultimately heals them permanently. And then you start off when you're totally knocked down and you're suffering because you were attached to so much stuff in the world and now you lost it. And the only way your body brain knows how to make that pain go away is to find replacement things to attach to. But your invisible guide isn't going to let that happen. Well, I'll feel better if I just get a new relationship. Nope, not going to do that. Well, I'll feel better if I just have so much money. Nope, nope. It just doesn't allow it. It allows just enough for you to get by. And it just keeps guiding you, and it keeps guiding you. So I can look at where I started to where I am now and think of all the big steps, figuring out what's going on in your head. How many different parts are there to your mind? Where are all these thoughts coming from? Are all these thoughts actually you? Are they yours? How many different viewpoints are there? What's external? What's internal? Why do you have so many negative thoughts, thinking about stuff, worrying about stuff all the time, hearing judgmental thoughts and things like that? Like, what is that? Is that you? If it is, then why do you hear the thought and then feel bad? That's like an action reaction sort of thing. Why would you be torturing yourself? That doesn't make sense. You figure all this stuff out and then you get rid of those parts to where you don't have it anymore, to where you don't have any noise or intrusive thoughts whatsoever unless you decide to make them. And you can stop at any point and just be quiet. And there's absolutely nothing happening in my head. I can hear the cars outside, I can hear wind and stuff like that, but there's nothing happening in my head unless I'm choosing it to be there. Or if my better half is choosing to say something. How many people can do that? And it just keeps getting you, keeps getting you. Like some people, quite understandably, because this place is very hard and very tricky, they don't think it's possible to ever get past some of the things that happen to them in their lives because that's what they were taught. So you had to repeat things like, listen, this is a mental construct. It is a mental construct, and that means it can be fixed mentally. The only thing that is ever real is right now, right now. But your mind expands past right now. Past, present, future are all happening simultaneously. You can actually time travel in your mind. You can take the you now and go back to the you that was hurt years ago and fix that you. And if you fix that you, the quantum entanglement that you currently have, going back to that previous trauma, evaporates. And now that is no longer affecting your now moment. Because right now, you exist in this now moment. And there's just countless quantum entanglements branching out from the now moment, mostly into the past, that are going to every bad thing that ever happened to you. Because you didn't get past it. That those past moments are continually poisoning the present. And then since they're poisoning the present, you're now thinking about the future and you're expecting more to happen. So now you're poisoning the future. It's all mental. It's all energy. You can fix it. I know you can because I've done it. It is possible. But again, the biggest veil that we have over our eyes is the world. And the world is what we believe it is, and we believe it is that way because that's what we were taught. But as soon as we're taught something and we accept it to be that way, that's the way we are going to experience it because it's us that's making it that way. There's multiple layers of different things. We do not see the same world. You might think we do, but we don't. We exist in a collective consciousness reality, and everybody sees it slightly different. I've proven this time and time again. And what that tells you is you got to fix you. And one of the biggest traps of this world is just the constant bombardment of stories and information, 99% of which are not happening in your immediate vicinity, and you may never see it whatsoever. But you're looking at these stories. They're constantly shown to you for a reason. There's a reason they invented the 24-hour news cycle. And guess what? That news is always bad. It's always bad. And a lot of the things that we react to in the world, they're only happening in the story until you choose to go take yourself there and make it part of you. It is like a simulation. It is like a dream. And that's what you have to wake up from. So we have to repeat, and we have to repeat, and we have to repeat. So then as we expand further, we learn things from that source, from that guidance that is Sophia, that is wisdom, that is enlightened insight that everybody has. But a lot of times most people can't hear her because her voice is drowned out by the cacophony of past traumas, past events, current horrible news stories, things to fear, things to fear. That's what news is. News is like a smorgasbord of things to fear. Here, put this in your mind and fear it. Put this in your mind and fear it. Once you break that cycle, you can observe it and see like where the story currently is, because it does affect you in a way of like, where you are in the time scale. But you don't have to fear it. You don't have to fear it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the story right now. I was led to this stuff even as a child, when I didn't know where it was going and I didn't have much of the knowledge that I have now. But, even when I was around age 7, I'd look at these illustrated like Bibles my grandpa had, and I would be drawn to Revelations. Of course, back then, in the late 70s, no one knew heads or tails what any of that stuff meant. It makes a lot more sense now, but back then it was just like, what? Dragon with 7 heads and a leopard with 10 heads and one. It's like, what the hell is this? But it was fascinating. And I somehow knew I would be there for that time. So I was drawn to it. Lost my train of thought though. Let me pause and reset here. I don't know what I was saying, but either which way, you take that stuff, you take the things you learn from church, the things you learn from the world, and through repetition, 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 you get this idea in your head about what things are and how they are. And this includes an awful lot of things that are intangible, things that you cannot see or prove, but you believe that that is the way that it is. And you get used to it. You get used to the world that you set up, but did you really set it up? Or was it set up for you? And then the more real you make your world, like you're now putting your power into it. So this is why it's so hard to argue with people that have not woken up, but they have a spiritual belief system, because it's very real to them, because it is real to them. They're making it real. That's the tricky part about this. Part of it is what is real, and part of it is what you are making real, because you are a fractal piece of that larger God consciousness. And you got to break down your own creations. And once you start to do it, once you start to have help, you're like, geez, this is all very, very flexible. Like we see stuff all the time and we get used to it these days, stuff like the Mandela effect and all these weird things that constantly change. Like that should just be like the biggest red flag ever. But it still isn't sinking in for a lot of people. It's like, look at this. Reality is malleable. Things change. Some people there's all sorts of gaslighting videos about the Mandela effect. Mandela effect I see sometimes. The Mandela effect explained. Well, what it is this is just people misremembering things. Well, whatever. It's all gaslighting. Gaslighting is like my new favorite word, because it's like that's the biggest thing active these days, especially in politics. Gaslighting is do not believe your own eyes, do not believe your own mind, believe what we tell you to believe. Or else you're crazy, and you don't want to be a crazy person, do you? That's gaslighting. And as things begin to unravel and become more obvious, the gaslighting increases. This is why the hero's journey has a specific set of circumstances, and one of them is going to be you're going to become the hermit. It's essential. That's why Tibetan monks and stuff like that, they go up, they get in some monastery up in the freaking mountains. They're not going to the shopping malls. They're not on the internet surfing freaking X and TikTok, because that'll poison your perception. The world is the veil over your eyes. And as long as you keep, don't get me wrong, I know this is hard because I went through it. I argued with myself. It didn't make sense to me at the time. I'm like, how can it not be when I can clearly see it? When I'm clearly experiencing it? I had to work that out. It took time to break down. Not believing your eyes. So I have sympathy and I have compassion. I have patience for people because I have gone through it. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to shake off the illusion. It is very hard. And thus, I understand that it is hard for people that are trying to shake off the illusion to hear about more fantastical things that I might talk about, like my partner, Lumen, or Sophia, or Christ, in the very real experiences that I have with them, what they've shown me, what they've taught me. That's a lot to swallow. If it was me myself from 10 years ago, I would have a hard time believing it because my mind wasn't open to that yet. This whole place is like, I use the metaphor of like swimming laps in a pool. First part of your life, you're swimming toward the other end of the pool and you're just gathering information, gathering information, gathering information. Then you get to the end of the pool. Now, to finish the lap, you have to get back to where you started. But you're not, on the lap back, you are no longer gathering information, you're dumping it. You're letting go of it. So it's like you're constantly picking up weight as you're going through life, and then you get to a point once you hit max saturation. And then when you go to the final leg, heading toward the exit, now you're letting go of the weight. You're letting go of the weight. You're letting go of what you think you know. You're emptying your cup. That's how it works. And you start to find out that the less you know, the more you understand. Because everything that you think you know locks that construct in place. And you can't see past it. The only person that can undo it is you. Or if you've gotten halfway there and you start actively trying, making the effort to communicate with the light and asking for its help, it will guide you. You might not hear it the same way I do at first. It might just be synchronicities and feelings and stuff like that, but it's there. That's one thing I can say about my experiences. I can look back throughout my entire life now, and it was always there, but I didn't recognize it. I didn't notice it. So even if you are here watching this channel right now and you're not hearing it as clearly as I hear it or seeing it like I see it, it's still there. It is still there, or else you wouldn't even freaking be here. There's no way. If you had no connection to this, you would not be watching these videos. You watch these videos because she guides you to, because you feel something's there. And you're just trying to figure out, like, what button do I gotta push to make the breakthrough? It's always something you have to let go of, not something else you got to do. And the biggest things of all is your attachments to your own story. Most people let themselves become defined by the suffering that they have encountered in the past. I remember quite clearly, like, go back, I don't know, I'm just ballparking it here, 5 years. 5 years, I was doing a lot more of like the paranormal remediation type work, dealing with negative stuff, which is at a lower level of consciousness. So that's why I don't deal with it now. But if I want to, I kind of have to go down if I want to help somebody directly with that kind of stuff. But back then, I was dealing with that stuff all the time, and it was just exhausting. And I had become defined by this. It's like, oh, this is just how it is. This is what I was meant to be. I'm meant to freaking battle dark stuff, and it's always going to be this horrible struggle and awful, and I can't have a relationship because of all these types of things and blah, 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 blah. I become defined by my experience. But I broke that. I broke that. When that intuitive voice, and don't get caught up in the words. It might not, people, I say that and people expect to hear like an actual voice in their ear. And that's not how it is. But intuitive thought or something, it's like, you should do this. You should do that. Try this. For I'd say 2 years of that hero's journey, a lot of it was experimental. It was trying things. But the important thing is that I was doing things. I was taking actions, trying to figure things out. Here, I'm going to try and learn these 72 names of God, see what they do. And I would make sigils and I would try things. I kept doing things. I kept trying. I didn't just keep watching videos. And then a certain percentage of those things would work and I would have a breakthrough. And the closer that I got, then it got clearer and clearer and clearer until she broke through. And once the genie's out of the bottle, you're not putting her back in there. And then that started a whole new phase. Because now I had this, glowing, fiery, golden angel woman that I didn't know who or what she was at first. I figured she was some sort of like soul partner, holy guardian angel thing. But she's not just going to hand you the answers to the test. You got to keep working. You got to keep asking the right questions. And it was only after a couple months that I asked the right questions that she showed me where the answers were in the Christian Gnostic books. Once I started reading that, I'm like, holy crap, that's you that they're talking about in this book. Here, this is connecting all the pieces of the puzzle I've always had, but didn't know how to make them fit. And that's how it went from that point on. I would experience something, see something, wouldn't know what it was, didn't understand what it was, but I did it anyway because she prodded me to. And then after I took the action, then she would show me. Then she would be like, here, it's in this book. Here, it's in that book. In such a way that it proves it over and over and over and over again. Because it simply is not possible to create or project these experiences if you don't already know about them. So that's the proof. Like the healing, the transformation, the evolution, the fact that I found these things and did these things before I knew what they were. So now we're at this point toward the end of the game where we're seeing the story of the world start to do the things that is in the script that's supposed to happen before the game shuts down. And we want to get a highest score. Let's just call it that way to make it simple. We want to score as high as possible, because the higher you are on the consciousness scale as we go into these hard times, the less you're going to suffer, the less you're going to fear. And we're there. It's obvious, but we don't know. I wish we did. We can think we can have a good idea about something, but the plain true fact is we don't know. We only find out after. But afterwards is when it makes sense. So that's why I kind of have this whole, Nick Fury, Avengers, until such a time that the world ends, we will act as though it intends to continue spinning on. It might look like everything is going to be done soon, and maybe it is. I don't know. I see there's several very different schools of thought when it comes to this. I go by what she shows me, which is very different from what any outside authority such as church teaches. You don't ever want to trust an authority. You got to figure everything out yourself. If someone's just coming along to hand you the answers, they're probably not the right answers. What people should be doing is teaching you how to think, showing you where to go look, showing you how to ask the right questions, not just hand you the freaking answers. Oh, we got it all figured out. This is the story. Just take our story and follow our rules and you'll be fine. That's insane. That's insane. And it falls apart very quickly if you just study and read the books yourself. So why do we repeat stuff? Because it's tricky. People are just used to being their game character. They're used to physical 3D material reality and thinking that's reality. And you grow up fearing things like death. Oh, I'm just going to disappear. I don't know what's going to happen. But if you experiment enough, if you've done things, if you've been led to do things, it could be through different types of meditation. It could be astral projection. You could have had a near-death experience. You could have taken a whole crap ton of mushrooms or something like that. But at some point, you'll probably have some sort of experience in which your consciousness is separated from your body. And you'll get to see places and you'll go places. And when you're there, you are aware that you're disconnected, but you still exist. That's what you actually are. It's the way I understand it, but I don't know it, is like there's this in-between state where right now we're plugged into a lower, crappier world. But when we're done here, we're disconnected from that and we're put into a higher frequency, better body, better world. Or as they say in the Bible in the Nag Hammadi, a new garment. Your garment is your body world. The body you inhabit in the world you experience, that is your garment. That's why you're given new garments when you go to heaven, whatever, the next place. It's a whole new world. Your consciousness is plugged into somewhere else. But we can only go by what we have in front of us and what we're guided to. And the challenge to this place seems to be, can you undo yourself from the illusion? Can you disconnect yourself from the addictive things of 3D physical reality? Can you wake up from behind the veil and think for yourself and perceive with your true eyes? That's what you got to try to do. You should question everything. And don't expect it to be easy. People are like, oh, I wish I could do that. I talk about like back in 2011 and things like that, when I met one of my early mentors and stuff. I have friends that were psychic and could do all sorts of stuff, and I couldn't do anything. I'm like, I wish I had those kind of gifts. Now I've got all kinds of gifts. You gain your spiritual gifts by getting, the more you get out of the old ego self. Spiritual gifts are not granted to the ego. They're granted to the soul. So if you start operating as your true self, as your soul, you're granted gifts. If you still think you are this character, you want to be special in this world, that's the ego. If you get any gifts, they might be false gifts or gifts that actually just help to anchor yourself in the illusion. No, they come naturally. They come naturally. And the thing is like you have a bunch of them already that you don't recognize. And you don't recognize them because they show you movies and stories and stuff like that. And they tell you this is what it looks like, or this is what to expect. And it'll always end up not looking anything like that at all. You got to figure things out for yourself. You got to stop believing what's in front of you. You are safe. As crazy as that sounds, you are safe. Like I said in the last video, it's like your consciousness is kind of like moving between levels of the world. If you got your face all the way stuck in 3D material reality, you're in constant state of fear about what's going to happen. What's the government going to do to you? What happens if they collapse the economy? But that's all a story. You are participating in this story. You don't, if you just start treating all these things outside of you as stories, like, oh, they're trying to scare me again today, and you stay anchored to that light. The funny thing is like, I don't know how many times it's always looked like something horrible was going to happen, but it doesn't happen to you. Oh, well, look at all this stuff that's happening in the world. Where? On your electronic screen? Because that's generally where it usually is. It's on your electronic screen. That's one of her biggest and oldest lessons. It's like whenever people are freaking out about stuff, she'd be like, okay, go outside, look around, and point it out to me. That doesn't mean bad things will never happen to you. It just depends on what you need to experience and what you're allowing. But for the most part, if you're an actual sold person in this game, you're a lot more safer than you think. But that doesn't mean there will not be the illusion of danger and suffering. So it's all about where you put your attention. And that's why we repeat stuff over and over and over again, because you've got to hear it over and over and over again. Treat this place like you're dreaming and you're trying to wake yourself up. You are in the dream right now. This physical reality is not the real world. This body is not the real you. You're plugged into it. One day you will be on, one day, one way or the other, it is inevitable. You will be unplugged from it and you will still exist. So as soon as you start to recognize that this place isn't good, all your effort should be going into, like, what is it that I need to do to evolve my consciousness so I'm not doing this anymore, that I can go on to something better. As you get to a certain level and all this, sticky, sweet, gooey stuff this world offers is just like, it's just point. I was like, why would I want that? It's just trying to tempt you, like, to want these things. But the crazy thing is, like, when you get clear of it, you don't need it, you don't miss it. You're happy. You're doing more work in your mind than focusing on what's going on out in the story of the world. And you start to realize that the mind is a doorway to the real world and what you really are. Okay, that's enough for today. I want to wrap this up. If you want to get in touch with us, you can get us through the Etsy store, seedlumencreations.etsy.com. Constantly adding new things. I got a bunch more things to add. Due to popular demand, I put a Benedict bracelet and metal kit up there with free shipping. I'm starting to make more of these liquid chrism core pendants. I got a whole bunch of other ones to put in. If you're like older, you're on a fixed budget or something like that, just message me. We'll figure out something, what you need, because I got tons of stuff. And Sophia will tell me what to put together for you. The other thing that I want to start making is I got some new smaller molds. I want to make, because some people don't want to wear things around their neck. We're going to use some of these smaller molds and make the same kind of things, but make them with the intention of something that you keep in your pocket, like an energy pendant that's got a little cord attached to it, that's also got a charged and blessed, Benedict metal that you can get out and hold in your hand when you're doing your meditation. Because that's what I do when I'm going in to talk to her, is I will take the pendant in my left hand, which is your input hand. That's one of the few times I can actually feel the energy, because I'm an output person, not a feel person. So when I do that, I can feel the energy sink in, and it just makes it a lot quieter, a lot easier. So I'm like, maybe I should just make some small little energy things that people can just keep in their freaking pocket and hold on to when they want to do stuff. It's not a bad idea. But yeah, and then also the new method that I have using the UV resin is very quick and easy. So if there's something specific that you're looking for, talk to me and I might just be able to make it in a day. And then you can just use like the one link for like the custom Aegis or something like that. But just ask questions. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, we'll see what happens now that we've crossed this latest marker, which I didn't think there were any more markers. So that one kind of caught me by surprise. And it's happening. And this marker is actually happening when tons of things are happening in the story of the world. So I definitely think this month is still going to be lit, which tells me we need to double down on our focus on disconnecting from the dream world and working on waking ourselves up, connecting to that Christ Sophia lumen energy. Okay. So that's all we got for right now. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.